Function versus flashy is a theme I see played out in the fly fishing world quite a bit, and this could not be more true when it comes to flies themselves. If I were to go through one of your boxes, grab it up and think, oh yeah, nice articulated streamer, oh very cool double parachute, merger, hippie stomper, oh, and as I'm thumbing past, getting towards the end, getting past all the mop flies, getting past all the squirmy wormies, there's probably one little corner, one dark, dusty corner of midges. Got some zebra midges, got some emergers, but they don't look like they've been touched in years. Folks, this is the tale of the underrated midge. If it's wintertime at your favorite trout stream or any season at your favorite local tailwater, midges are king. And it is about dang time we start treating them like royalty, man. This is gonna be a life cycle video of sorts. And I'm gonna be detailing the life cycle of the midge through 3 distinct fly patterns. My 3 favorite imitations for the pupa, the emerger, and the fly stage of this bug. Now, before I jump into my first pattern, I gotta get it off my chest. 2 things, just 2 things, bear with me. First being, shout out to all you subs, all you IG folks, commenting, DMing. This little community is so awesome, and I just always want to say thank you. You guys, you guys are the freaking best. And those of you who haven't jumped on yet, no worries. I appreciate the view, and yeah, I hope you gain something out of this. And the second thing that I need to get off my chest before we can start tying flies is that I am not an entomologist, and I am not an expert fly tyer. So really, I have no business doing this. I'm just some dude on the internet. So don't listen to a single word I say. It is all cockamamie BS. So let's get on to the first fly. For our zebra midge, all we're really gonna need is some crystal flash in really whatever color you like. I decided to use pearl, and some ultra wire. And to get this whole fly started, I'm gonna tie my crystal flash and ultra wire in at the same time to maintain that uniform width across the body. And once we reach the bend of that hook with both our ultra wire and our crystal flash, I'm gonna start making some forward wraps with the crystal flash to help build up my body a bit more and give it some nice contrast. After that is all locked in place, I'm gonna take that ultra wire and make some more wraps over. This is not only gonna make the fly stronger as a whole, but it's also gonna help to create some segments to really help further resemble this midge pupa. And to finish this all up, I'm just gonna add in a small dubbing noodle in black to build up my thorax a little bit more and just, yeah, give it a little bit more meat on the fly. And once that's in order, all it takes is a couple cheeky whip finishes and we're good to go. It may not be flashy, but folks, it is functional. The zebra midge is one of my all-time favorite midge imitations, just because of how simple it is and really how easy to tie. I mean, you saw it. It was a couple wraps and you're there. Now, granted, this is a bit bigger than I would normally throw, just because I'm trying to show the functions on the camera and, you know, trying to tie an 18 through 22. It doesn't pick up well with the lens I have, so we're stuck with a little bit bigger, but I'm sure it'll catch fish nonetheless. The cool thing about this pattern is you can tie up a ton of these and stick them in your box because they're going to be pretty useful depending on where you are. Now, I like to go with black, but you can get them in red, you can get them in green. There's different colors depending, again, on the watershed that you're in. But these little flies live most of their lives in this stage. So if you're in a midge dense area, I would greatly suggest having a few of these in your box and throwing a lot of pupa stage midges, because they really don't hatch too much. The timing has to be right. So the temperatures and the timing gotta be just right for you to get on a midge bite. But that's what we're gonna look at next. We're gonna look at the emerging phase, because when everything's right, this little midge is gonna blow an air bubble, and that air bubble is gonna propel that fly to within about an inch of the water's surface, and that's where they're gonna start hatching. And if you've ever heard an old timer on the river talking about, oh, they were midging today, oh babe, we got a midging today, that is what they're targeting, is those hatching midges. And it can be a really fun bite to target, but you need the right fly. So let's take a look at what I like to use usually when it comes to an emerging midge. Now this emerger stage is going to start its life out almost identical to our zebra midge. We're going to be tying in our crystal flash and ultra wire at the same time, just like we did before. But this time, we're going to wrap a little lower into the hook bend and even past the hook bend. And instead of wrapping that crystal flash back up the fly, what we're going to do is we're going to snip it there and kind of create a tail of sorts. I'll explain that later. But after we snip it to our desired length, we're going to wrap that ultra wire back up our hook and create the segments that we're looking for when tying up a midge. This is going to be the point in the fly where things start to get a little bit squirrely. This is where we're going to make our hackle stacker. And what I personally like to do is I like to tie in my hackle first before we make our hackle pillar or our hackle stacker, whatever you want to call it. But essentially what I'm going to do after I get that hackle locked in place is I'm going to make 1, 2, 3, and even 4 wraps around my index finger to create this tower. And once we have that tower made, you kind of got to, again, be careful about your order of operations. I'm going to put down a nice thorax, make my antron dubbing nice and big and bulky and puffy to look like that hatching midge before I make the hackle stacker. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my finger back through that main hole of the hackle stacker and just slowly make wraps with that hackle back around. And we're going to make our way up slowly but surely, making sure to, make nice touching wraps, nothing too out of the ordinary of sorts. And what we'll do is we'll just lay that right across our big thorax that we just made and cinch it down real tight. With the hard part out of the way, we're sitting pretty. All we have to do now is simply clean up the fly and give it a few good whip finishes to lock it in place and make it ready to fish.
It does not get much more cheeky than that, folks. This is one of my all-time favorite midge emerger patterns. It's super subtle, and that hackle stacker keeps the fly completely submerged except that just little top bit of hackle. And it's nice and bright where you can still see it, where you can be looking for that white as they're starting to midge, and it does such a good job. A little bit of crystal flash at the end. I like to think it represents the shuck of the old fly, the shell of that little pupa. I don't know if it makes a dang difference, but it is so key to have a few of these bad boys in your box in varying sizes, because when that midge bite starts to happen, I can't tell you how, on tailwaters especially, it'll come and go just like that. So you gotta be quick, you gotta be Johnny on the spot, get this bad boy on, and capitalize on the midging fish. They're midging! Oh, the old timers say they're midging! Look for those dimples and keep a couple of these bad boys on standby, and you'll be a-okay. But this does not happen very much, because once they move from the emerging phase, they're moving into the last part of their life, that being the fly stage. So let's look at our third and final pattern to represent the midge fly.
For our crystal midge, we're going to be adding in some brown crystal flash this time, and that's what's going to make up our body section. So we'll tie it in, get it down to the hook bend, and then start making forward wraps back towards the other end of the hook. This is going to make a nice flashy body, but still pretty thin. Once we get that nice and locked in, the next part of this fly that kind of gives its signature of sorts would be the crystal. And we're going to make a nice crystal wing section with equal parts pearl crystal flash and equal parts brown crystal flash. And once we get that all locked in place, we'll make a couple tight wraps behind it again just to make sure it's not going anywhere. And then comes the more complicated part of this particular pattern, that being the hackle. You really got to be sure to get the Goldilocks length when it comes to this particular fly. You don't want your hackle too long, and you don't want it too short. Now, if you have a hackle board, that is a really good way to measure out the exact length that you need. But because I'm a goon, and because I've had to do trial and error for so many times, I have a now trained eye, and I can get a good gauge of what I need depending on the hook gap. And we found a nice feather and just made some very tentative forward wraps. Slow and steady wins the race when it comes to this. Don't be too forceful, be nice and gentle, and you'll get the desired taper that you want. And as you can see, we didn't break the feather. We got it right to where we needed to go. And yeah, once we cinch it down, as always, give it a few good whip finishes. This crystal midge is ready for service.
I tell you what, I cannot get enough of a good crystal midge. This is a pattern that I kind of downloaded many years ago, and I've been tying ever since. It is one of my favorites, and it does such a good job of representing that adult midge, because once they're done emerging, they're going up into the clouds. They're getting those big balls, getting their freak on, and then they're coming back to the river, lake, stream, what have you, and they're laying their eggs. And the reason I like this pattern so much is because it sits high on the water and it skates. You can really do a good job with the way this hackle sits. You can kind of skate this fly, and that's what you'll see on the water. They're getting back to the river. They're trying to lay their eggs. They're trying to build the next generation of midges. They're not trying to get jacked by some hungry tailwater brute. So they're moving, they're ducking, they're diving, they're dodging. And that's kind of what you'll see. You'll see a more aggressive take from a trout. When they're coming up and smacking the adult phase, it's going to be a bit more splashy. It's not going to be that subtle little kiss off the surface that you'll see when they're midging or going off the emerging stage. So I love the crystal midge, and I hope you do too. But we have just seen from the bottom up of a midge's life cycle, the kind of cursory level of the life cycle, but still we got to see the pupa, the emerger, and finally the adult phase. 3 extremely effective patterns. Mike tested, Mike approved. Not only that, but they're so easy to tie. We just ran through those in no time at all, and now we've got 3 patterns that cover a wide range of what the fish might be doing on a particular day. So folks, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something from it. I know it's kind of tough transferring the fishy knowledge. Seeing is believing in my book. So until you see this, until you experience the emerging phase or the pupa or the adult phase, it's kind of hard to replicate. But I promise you, you keep a couple of those in your box, they're gonna pay off. They're gonna pay off big time. But as always, folks, like I said before, thank you so much. I love hearing what you guys have to say. So with there being so many different midge patterns out on the market, comment down below, what's your guys' favorite pattern? Do you like the ones that I tied, or do you have some other ones? Because I love tying new patterns. I love learning about new flies, and yeah, taking all those elements and making some Frankenstein Mike style fly, you know? But folks, wherever your fishy adventures take you, I sure hope you clear out another section of your fly box. Put some midges in there, dang it. Treat them like royalty. But make sure to keep those feet in the water. And until next time, tight lines.
That was a good cast. Nice. That's a nice one too.